My name is Dr. Tim Madeley. I'm the Chief Financial Officer at the school. I'm relatively new to this position. I've spent the last 9 years as a professor at SPSCC and then here at St. Martin's University teaching accounting and business and entrepreneurship. And before that, I owned Big Toys, the company that makes playground equipment, like in schools and parks. Some of you may have played on my products in the past. So I did that for a long time before moving to higher ed, which I absolutely love. I will let each of our panelists here introduce themselves briefly. If you could maybe say your name, what your job is, and how long you've been in banking.
Okay, I can go first. Yeah. Hey, good morning. My name is Alan Kirshner. I'm the branch manager of Twin Star Credit Union, a branch there right off of Yelm Highway and College Street. I've been in banking now for a total of, gosh, I think we're going on 15 years or so. So I've been with Twin Star for about 12 years.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Halstead, and I'm a mortgage loan officer at Twin Star Credit Union, and I have been doing mortgage for about 26 years.
Hello everybody, my name is Amanda Stevens. I am the Foundation and Education Development Manager at Twin Star Credit Union. I have worked in the finance industry probably for 14 years. I've been at Twin Star for coming on 9 years this November.
Okay, thank you. So the questions that I've prepared for our panelists here are really intended to kind of give you an idea about what it's like to work in the finance or the banking industry. Some of you may be thinking that that's a path you want to take down the road. So I'll ask questions to kind of give you a little bit more of a flavor of what that's like. So that's my intention anyways. So if we could start with Amanda, maybe you could tell us what led to your career in banking, kind of what path you took that brought you here.
Friends, I probably took the most long and windy road to banking than anybody up here at least. But I thought when I was in college that I was going to be singing and tap dancing my way into the hearts of Americans. I was a music education major and I was a performer, and I still do that a little bit. But once I moved to Washington, I taught middle school for about 6 months and decided that is definitely not what I wanted to do with my life. Although now I might go back, but I probably wouldn't go back to middle school. So I started looking for a completely different career, and I ended up working at the Olympian newspaper. I worked there for almost 10 years. I sold advertising, but as the newspaper industry kind of wound down and I saw my friends getting laid off, I realized I was going to have to reinvent myself yet again. And it took me 2 years to find a job that I thought I would be a pretty good fit for, and I went to work for a bank. I worked for a bank for 5 years, was not happy. It was very high pressure sales. And so I thought, I have a degree in education, I have sales experience, I have all this weird random stuff. My resume was very eclectic. I didn't know what I was going to do, and then a position came up at Twin Star where somebody needed public speaking skills, they needed somebody with financial background, and I thought, well, that's a pretty good fit, I'll apply for that. So that's how I ended up at Twin Star, and I am really glad I did. But in college, I never would have considered a role at a financial company, but it's really changed my life, and I don't think I would change anything.
Thank you. Cynthia, same question. What led to your current position?
Okay, so I'm a little bit like Amanda, and when I was in college, my degree was in business. My dream was to be in news broadcasting, and my path didn't go that way. I was in communications, and I was a junior, and I'm like, I like a lot of different things. And so I just decided to get my degree in business, and then I worked at various places, and it wasn't until I was purchasing my first home, and we met with a loan officer, and I really didn't know much about it at the time, and started talking with the loan officer that was helping us, and I said, what kind of background do you have to do this job? And he was like, I have a business degree, and you have to have people skills. And I was like, okay, I have that. I like to talk. I have a business degree too. And it was just kind of learning. It was something I didn't know, I wasn't familiar with. And I thought, then I found out that the job, and this isn't true of all officers, but the majority of them, a lot of your income is commission. And I was like, there is no way I'm doing this. There's no way. I like stability. And for some reason at that time in my life, I was married and my husband had a stable job, and he was like, why don't you just try it and see? And about 27 years later, I'm still doing it. I mean, it does have its ups and downs, but I'm very happy. I love it. I love the variety with it. And it was just something I kind of fell into. And then not to hog the whole time here, but I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with DECA. Both of my boys went to Capitol High School, and they did DECA, and I was a judge. And I remember my son, my older son, his teacher said, well, why don't you do a project, something with finance, because your mom does that. And we were in the car headed there, and he was like, no offense, but like, I don't think I would ever want to do your kind of job. And I said, when I was in college, I didn't think about that either. But it's crazy what you're exposed to as you go through the process and looking for jobs of what you realize you really like to do. So I still like other things too, but I love my job. So.
That's awesome. Alan, if you could share the same.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. Yeah, so like I think all of us, I didn't really plan on being in banking. You have your sights set on something maybe a little more prestigious or fun or movie-like. But I did have experience in sales. My dad was in merchant processing sales back in the day, so the credit card machines. And so I started working for his business, and I was starting with outbound calling businesses, and then meeting with business owners. And so I started my career really in sales. I did not go to college, but I did have a lot of sales jobs along the way. And of course, like Cynthia, commission, most of them are pure commission. So it's very challenging. But I accidentally stumbled upon a teller position at Twin Star Credit Union back in 2004, and I just needed a job at that point. So I got a job as a part-time teller, loved what I was doing, got to know the membership, got to know the local community, really fell in love with just kind of being part of the community and actually having some impact on finances for any individual. Long story short, left Twin Star after about a year and a half, came back about 6 years later after working for a bank, and then fell in love with it all over again, and just built a career working with individuals. My favorite part of it was actually being able to sit down with somebody from across the desk and really help them with their finances, at times fix their finances. Something that might have been a struggle for them, I was able to assist them with kind of overcoming that and maybe setting them in a better direction. So really, I didn't plan on it. Nobody really says, hey, gosh, I want to sit behind a desk and do loans. But once you actually do some applications, one of my favorite stories is I had this gentleman. He was going to school to be a teacher. He had just finished his education. He needed to pay for the certification, and so I gave him a loan for $500. Long story short, he comes back a year later as a teacher, thanking me for helping him with that loan. It was such a small loan, but it was so life-changing for him, and then the impact he's going to have on so many people in the community as well. So that's how I got into it. That's why I'm still in it. I love what I do. It's a very meaningful work. And as being part of a credit union, we're a cooperative, so we are here to serve our members. Profits come back to the community, come to the employees, not to shareholders. And so there's so much meaning in what we do that it keeps me getting up every morning.
Thank you very much. I've had a lot of students that have been nervous about not knowing what they want their career to be, what they want to do for the rest of their lives. That can be kind of a big decision. And I really appreciated all three answers because most people fit the pattern that you do, that they end up somewhere they didn't necessarily initially intend to be. But they're open to opportunities and they take what comes and find what they love to do. So that's awesome. If we could, I'll go the other direction. I'll start with Alan. If you could talk about what you do on a typical day.
Yeah, so I'm the branch manager of the location I'm at, and so I have a fun job. I really just talk to people. I get to build rapport with people, both new members, employees, but really, start off with opening the branch, make sure it's looking presentable, it's clean, and then kind of make sure everybody is dressed appropriately, wearing their name tags. once we get ready to open the branch and we're prepared, it's really just assisting my staff on anything that might come up. And all of my employees are universal officers, so they do everything from teller transactions to loans, home equities, you name it. And so a big part of my job is being ready and available to assist them when there is something that they come across that they don't have any experience doing. Every day is a challenge in a different way. It can be where I'm in the back covering drive-through because everybody's at lunch and I just need to make sure we can help members in the drive-through. Or it can be somebody comes in, they're incredibly upset because their deposit didn't come through, and now it's my job to figure out what's going on, right? It is now my responsibility. And so I have the ability to really take ownership of everything that comes in. And it's such a variety. You would think banking is just straight numbers and being good at math, which is not. We have computers that do that. But a big part of what we do is ready to help whoever comes through the door. We were taught as a credit union, every single member is an owner of the credit union. As if our CEO, Jeff Kennedy, was coming in, you treat everybody the same. So a big part of my job and my staff's job is to be prepared for whoever comes in, whatever their need. It's all great, it's all important, no matter what. And so it provides a lot of variety, but also a lot of challenge. Every day is different. I've had it where we're on lockdown because somebody robbed the Starbucks down the street, right? We have to close our doors all of a sudden for some emergency. We have to. We're getting an upgrade in some sort. There's always something in the banking industry. There's always something new, and so there's a never-ending level of learning going on and experiences. And believe it or not, can give you some crazy stories. It's a fun job. It's not boring in any way, but it's also very meaningful, like I mentioned earlier. And I don't know, it's a lot of novel experiences, which I think is pretty great.
Same question, Cynthia.
Okay. So what Alan said about the numbers, it was kind of funny because math was like my worst subject ever, and I always thought if I never do anything with numbers ever, that would be amazing. And I do it every single day now. But we have help with the computers. My job is very social. I used to be in the branch until COVID, and then they sent all of the loan officers home. So we work remote, and actually we're not supposed to be meeting face-to-face, although we get a lot of requests. But I'm on the phone a lot, and I attend a lot of functions. So I have relationships with members. I also I have relationships with all the branches because I cover 10 branches. And so I have to be there to support their members, so they can call me and say, okay, hey, we have questions about this, or do you think this is something we can look at? And so it's a lot of that, also with the community and realtors, because we do a lot of purchases, we do refinances, we're constantly working together to help members. And then I have a lot of time on the computer, which is just because of our loan programs and working with members. So, my job is very, very satisfying because people are looking at purchasing maybe their first home, or maybe they're purchasing a second home, it's the biggest investment that people make, and to be part of that is really fun. It's very stressful sometimes. This morning I actually had one I was dealing with right before I walked in, a really big purchase, and there's issues that are uncontrollable, so you have to be able to manage that and your stress level and remain calm because you have so many different people that you're working with. I mean, I work with title companies, I work with realtors, I work with insurance companies, and it's kind of rallying. My significant other likes to call me a professional nagger because I have to constantly be at people to provide documentation, and so you just kind of have to make it fun. Which I usually try to do, but my job is very rewarding because the end result, whether it's good or bad, like Alan said, sometimes people aren't ready yet, but we can put people on a path, and I love doing that, saying, okay, you're not ready right now, but if you follow these things, that will put you on the path that maybe in 6 months or a year. So it's things like that that's very rewarding.
And Amanda, your typical day.
Well, my typical day is very diverse. It's different every single day. And I work with numbers even less than Alan and Cynthia. I go into schools and I talk about money all the time. So I work with teachers, kindergarten through college usually. I used to do older adults, but we have another department that's kind of taken that role on. And I talk about pretty much the same subject all the time. Budgeting, credit, buying a car, buying a house, a little bit. Going to college, financing, those types of things, and investing. And I get to talk about those subjects to help folks that are your age plan to be successful with your money so you can live the life that you want to live. That was what I did 100% through until the pandemic started, and then I didn't do any presentations because school wasn't happening the same way, and I did a little Zoom, but it didn't work out, so I had to kind of redesign my job a little bit, and then I started doing a lot more work with our foundation. Twin Star gives out scholarships. We also give out grants to teachers and have different ways to give back to the community. And so now I have a job that kind of ties me to my computer a little bit more than it used to. It used to be I traveled every single day. But now I have to balance that. And I will tell you that's a little bit of a challenge because I have this need for my position to be out in the community in classrooms, but I also have need to make sure that when folks are applying for scholarships that it is a smooth process and that happens, easy breezy. So I do that as well. So my job can change every day. If I have a bad day in the classroom, I just kind of forget about it because tomorrow's a different day. I'm going to a different classroom with a different set of students, and it could be the best class that I ever have. So I love that my job changes all the time, and I get to work with so many different teachers and so many different students to help you be successful with your finances.
So I was going to ask you next what you love about your job, but you've already told us that, so I don't need to ask. So I'll go the other direction. What do you find most challenging about your job? I'll start with you.
Most challenging about my job is kind of like Cynthia. When the pandemic started, they basically sent my whole team home, and I work remote. I do still travel for my job now, so I get out to see people, but if you are a social person and you're working from home, that can be a little bit of a challenge. My husband also works from home, so he's essentially my desk partner and friend. I see my husband all day long, and I see him at night. So if that's going to happen, you have to be aware of how to set boundaries with your partner, because that can be it can be great and it's fantastic for me, but sometimes it is challenging. When we're both in meetings and it can be a little loud in the house. So I would say just going from being a very social position to being remote has become kind of a challenge in how I operate.
I would say mine's very similar to Amanda, just because when people are buying a home, there's a lot of very personal information. I mean, we have to know everything, all your finances, your income, assets that you have, and people are not so giving of that information when it's not face to face. I think your generation's a little bit different, and maybe things will change, but you do a lot electronic. Like when my kids do things, I'm like, you're just sending that like that? But and it's depending on different areas, and so that's been a challenge. Like Grace Harbor, they want to see your face. They want to hand you their documents, and so that's a little hard. And that's where like a big piece of my job is sales, and just trying to put people at ease during such a big transaction and comfortable and making it easy for them. So we always say, I'm not there, but go into the branch, and because they usually know their branches very well and the staff, and give it to so-and-so, and then they'll get it to me, and so just navigating things like that. But I would say that's the biggest challenge.
Alan.
So unlike Cynthia and Amanda, my job is more people-centric. So I always explain my energy or my focus as like a flashlight. The beam's going everywhere, right? It's not like a laser where you can focus on, okay, I'm going to get this task completed, and then once it's done, I'm going to move to this task, and then after that, it's not like that as a branch manager. What happens is, like I mentioned, you start the day with opening the branch, And then you find some trash or a trash can that hasn't been emptied, and then you have to have a serious conversation with an employee, or a really good conversation with an employee, or you're being pulled off for this and that. And so I'm kind of going every direction. So it's a very social job. If you are a people person, working inside the branch is phenomenal. During COVID, we stayed at the branch, but we closed our doors down, and so I still got to work with people in the drive-through, with my staff. So it's a very social job. If you like people, come work for a credit union, work out at the branch. There's never a shortage of interactions, which I love. I love working with people. So it's been really great in that sense. The challenge, though, is really the focusing and getting tasks done, because you can be in the middle of something that's important to you, and then one of your employees knocks on the door, right? Like, I need to talk to you about this check. So I would say that's probably my biggest challenge, is just knocking out my to-do items is pretty hard sometimes.
Probably go home at the end of the day and wonder what you got done that day.
Oh yeah, you can spin your wheels for hours and then feel like you haven't completed anything. Yeah.
I know the feeling. So I always like asking this question of anybody that I interview, any professional I interview. So when you think back about your high school and your college career, the classes you took, can you point to a class that you think prepared you for the job you have now? Like accounting as an example?
Yeah, you
Just a
actually.
joke about it.
Although I did not finish my degree, I did take college classes, and I think one of the ones that helped me it really it was most influential on me was I had a debate class, and that is it can be pretty intense at times. I'm sure everybody's taken a debate class or will here shortly. That was really nice because it forced me to be in front, right? It gets you in front of everybody, and whether you're comfortable or not, it forces you to be very vulnerable, but also to have to prepare and do homework in order to be successful. So I really enjoyed that. I had a psychology class that was also very helpful. Who didn't think about it at the time, but now it does have a big part of what we do. At times, as a manager or a supervisor, you find that you are at times a therapist. So really, a lot of those classes had an impact, but those ones stand out to me.
Cynthia, same question.
Yeah, I wear a lot of different hats. I didn't really, like I mentioned, I didn't like any of the math classes, no offense, but I think public speaking probably really helps a lot, just because you have to know your audience and kind of gauge, what you're gonna say and how you're approaching. Everybody's so different. I might think I'm funny, but they might not think I'm funny, or I'm being sensitive, I'm not being too sensitive. I just think something like that, because no matter what you do, you're gonna be working with a bunch of different people. Even if you have a desk job, you have your coworkers, and everyone's different. So I think something like that would probably be helpful, psychology.
For me, also math was not my strongest subject in high school. I can't remember how many math credits we had to have, but I wanted to get out of like algebra 2 or geometry or some of the harder classes, and I took consumer problems, which taught me how to budget, balance a checkbook, which most of you are probably not going to write a check now, but it taught me all of those financial things, so that was probably a bit fortuitous. I did do public speaking and debate, and I was terrible. It took a while. And I was a music major. I think something that helped, which I don't know if a lot of you would get experience of, is every week we would have master class and everybody would sing, and then you would be critiqued by your class. So you had to kind of learn how to perform or stand in front of people and speak and do your thing, and then be able to take constructive criticism and apply that, and know that it's not, when you receive that constructive criticism, it's not a negative thing, it's making you better at what you're doing. And that is what helped me kind of start being able to speak in front of groups, because I had that constant practice, and sometimes it's that practice that really helps.
Thank you. I know those of you that are in college probably whine sometimes about having to take required courses that you're not really interested in. That was certainly the case for me when I was an undergrad. I had to take psychology, and I wondered, I'm a business major, why am I in the psychology class? Well, once I owned a business, it's all dealing with people. And then I wish I had taken more psychology classes. So.
Can I just add something to what Amanda said? I'm probably dating myself a little bit, but when I was in high school, we had, typewriting, or it wasn't called that, but
Keyboarding.
Keyboarding,
Yeah.
right. And it was the click, 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 and we had the white out that my mom used to have to use to help us and stuff. But, it really helped me with my computer skills that I have now. I think I'm pretty proficient on the computer. There's certain, I also think anything like spreadsheet-wise, I don't like. I rely on other people, which I shouldn't, but I think that that's important because I could use that almost every day because we have to do expense reports and things like that. So at the time you think, ugh, but just take it. I mean, back when I was in school, we took home ec, and we learned how to write a check, things like address an envelope and things. It sounds silly, but there are certain circumstances where you still need some of those things. So I think that's good.
Okay, next question. What advice do you have for students that are interested in a career in banking? I'll start with you, Amanda.
If you are interested in a career in finance, I would encourage you now to get some type of cash handling experience. That is number one when if somebody turns in a resume and is looking for a position, especially at a branch, they want to see that you've had some kind of experience handling money. And that includes using cards and things of that nature. And I know you can have those types of opportunities in school with Student Store. You can volunteer potentially at games and taking money. If you have even volunteering and getting some of that experience, that's going to help get your foot in the door. Because if you don't have any cash handling experience and you're looking for a position that's highly competitive at a financial institution, and that's a requirement, if you don't have that experience, they're not even going to look at your resume. So start looking for ways to get a little bit of that experience, and it's volunteering. You can start picking that up in places.
Perfect. Yeah. Cynthia, same question.
Yeah, I would say maybe job shadow. If there's, you can, I don't know what the rules are with Twin Star, but someone, go to HR.
I can say we don't really have an official job shadow, but I know if you went into a branch and said, I'd like to ask the branch manager a question, Helen, I know you would just sit down and just.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Any of us would, really.
Anybody would.
That's what I'm saying. If you have an interest in it, just try to do what you can to shadow someone for a little bit or ask the questions, go in, actually see what's happening. I think that's a good experience.
Absolutely, I would agree. Cash handling experience of any kind. It doesn't have to be very lengthy, but if you can prove that you have some skills, that's helpful. I always say that I'm in the business of people, not of finance, because we work for a credit union, we work with money, we work with loans, but everything is tied to our interpersonal skills and our connection with individuals. So get those people skills, get uncomfortable, get out there and meet people. If your job is one that is public facing, so it's like a retail, it might feel like, I don't want to work at McDonald's, I don't work at Target, whatever. But those are skills that will translate well in the credit union or the finance industry, because no matter what you're good at, you still have to be able to effectively communicate that to the person across from you or on the phone from you. So really get those cash handling skills, get those people skills. It doesn't matter, I've heard this explained, skill stacking is if you're really good at, let's say for example, design or coding, the most successful people in each of those fields have stacked that skill with one of communication. Maybe they're really good at writing, maybe they're really good at public speaking. Public speaking is very, very effective because no matter your industry, if you can stand in front of a group of people and talk about it, that's going to put you head and shoulders above others. So if I had to give anybody one piece of advice is get those people skills, get in front of people, get Toastmasters, speak in front of your class, debate, or any of that is going to do so much for you in any industry, but being able to communicate, that is key. That is key.
How many of you here just raise your hand if you really enjoy public speaking? A handful of you, okay. I can tell you when I was your age or in my 20s, if I had to do any public speaking, I honestly thought I would be sick, right? Like I would feel my stomach up in my throat, I would talk funny, all of that. And the only way I got over that was doing it over and over and over again. Got a job teaching and had to stand up every night and talk for 2 hours. And all of a sudden I wasn't nervous about it anymore. So that's my advice, is look for opportunities to stand up and talk. And the more you do it, time after time, nothing bad happens, right? So hopefully nothing bad happens. Okay.
Right.
What advice do you have with regard to resumes? So students will be preparing resumes, looking for jobs, that sort of thing. How can they make their resume stand out from others? I'll start with you on the end, Alan.
First of all, proofread, make sure everything makes sense, have somebody else take a look at it. We all work on papers, and we will type up an email, and we put so much thought and energy into it, and we miss something minor. And that's the first thing that stands out when we're looking at resumes, right? This is supposed to be your best foot forward. So really go through it with a fine-tooth comb and make sure it's perfect. And then don't write books, but write a couple sentences explaining what you do, and only think of the best, most positive parts of that job. Something that displays a skill that you learned. List your skills, list your accomplishments in a neat order, and then put a little bit of your personality in there as well. If you have some interest that you really think that is important to you, put it in there. It gives us something to talk about when you're in front of us, and oftentimes, because you're nervous in the interview, like everybody is in an interview, asking about something that you really feel passionate about gets you to relax, and then you open up, and then we get more information from you. So really, that's my piece of it.
Yeah, I
Cynthia.
don't have anything to add. I thought that was.
I would add just a little bit. I would use similar language as to the job posting, so keywords,
That is.
kind of matching the language, because some companies, and I don't know if Twinstar does this, but some companies will run resumes through looking for specific words and specific language, because there are really competitive positions out there. And if your resume doesn't have those words that they're specifically looking for that they probably put in the job posting, then your resume might not get noticed. I would also suggest, if you haven't had a job, you may think, what the heck am I going to put on my resume? But there are things that you are good at, and there are talents that you have, and maybe it is as simple as you volunteered maybe through church, or you volunteered through an organization, or you did something with an organization at school and you learned some skills. You can put those specifics down on your resume even if you haven't had a job yet. So you do have skills, and you can highlight those on your resume. It doesn't have to be a job that you had if you haven't had a job yet.
That was good. I add that, Amanda.
If I can put one more part.
Yeah.
We live now in the day and age of ChatGPT, right? I'm sure everybody here has toyed with it a little bit. But one thing you can do too is, if you don't know how to phrase it professionally, ask ChatGPT to help you phrase it professionally, or a friend who has that experience. I like doing this. How can I put this on a resume, list it as a skill, or something that I enjoy doing? And it will phrase it for you. So if you don't know, if you have nothing, put it in there, see what it gives you. Make sure it's accurate, right? We're going to ask you questions about it. But you do have tools available to you now that we didn't have 10 years ago, 5 years ago. So that's just what I want to add.
Somebody gave me advice once to tailor my resume to each particular job opportunity, not to have a generic resume that I send to all job opportunities, but to tweak it based on the qualifications that the job requires.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
last question, and then I'll open it up for the crowd here. What advice would you have about these students sitting for a job interview? How can they, again, stand out in an interview setting from other candidates? I'll start on this end.
All right, well, in my position, I actually haven't had the opportunity to interview many folks, but I can tell you that if you're in an interview, your degree is important, but you want to be personable, because not only are you interviewing for the position, you're also interviewing to see if you would be a good fit on the team, right? So you want to kind of show that you are teachable, that you are friendly and personable and easy to be around, because that is exactly what somebody is looking for. Am I going to enjoy working with this person? That's part of it. So I would definitely kind of demonstrate those people skills, be friendly, make eye contact. Something else that is really impressive in an interview is if you've done some research on the company and you bring questions to the interview to ask, because you are being interviewed, but you are also interviewing the company, right? You want to see if this is a place you want to work. So if you can ask questions, I think that is really a smart thing to do and will get you noticed.
Cynthia,
Yeah,
same
I would
question.
agree with that. And also, one other piece that I always say is to follow up. I think a lot of employers will say, okay, you know, I usually say, well, when can I expect to hear from you? And just to have that closure, because they're gonna say, oh, well, we're interviewing, you know, for the next week or so. And I've always told my kids, don't wait for that. You know, show that you are interested in the job and follow up on your own. You're not nagging. I mean, if you call every day, that's, you know, one thing, but just follow up. Hey, I'm just checking in. Did you have any other questions for me? Or is there anything else I can provide? And that just shows that much more interest on your part, and just good to follow up.
Alan, same question.
I'd agree with everything they've said so far. That's all very important information. Another thing too is you're going to find in an interview, there's a lot of quiet time when we are writing, right? We're taking notes. We're looking for things that stand out. We want good notes. So if you don't just give a one-word answer, don't give just a one sentence, like go into detail. We want more information. We want to hear as much as we can from you so we can learn as much as we can from you, right? Like they had stated too, you know, going into it, your first impressions, right? Within seconds, people make up in their mind with you know, a picture or a mental image of you. So you know, smile, shake hands, you know, be friendly to everybody you come in contact with because they're going to have input on that as well. I've had interviews where we thought they did great, but they were rude to one of the other employees. So remember, you're on stage, you're being perceived, you know, there's just a perception that people are building upon you, about you. So just be aware of that. And then, like I said, you know, when you're in there, come with specific examples. If I say, hey, give me an example of when you did this, and oh, I'm really good at doing that, you kind of generalize it. Well, no, I want a specific example. So one piece of advice I received from one of my managers years ago was keep a journal of situations or things you've encountered in life and reference that. Be prepared to reference that in your interview because specific examples stand out a lot more than generalities. I'm really good. I really like working with people. No, give me an example of how you went above and beyond. So I would say just detail.
Perfect. Questions from the crowd? Yeah.
My name is Valerie Fritz. I'm a business student here at St. Martin's, so thank you for being here, first of all. As somebody who's maybe not exactly interested in finance, but open to it, more interested in having a career that is meaningful beyond myself. Since all of you have touched on how much you love your jobs and how meaningful you find the work, I was just wondering, is it the people-oriented, meaningful work that attracted you to it first, or is it the finance and then the meaning came later as kind of a fun surprise?
I can take that one.
Go ahead.
So I worked at a bank before I worked at a credit union, and a lot of people would think there's really not that much of a difference, but there's a huge difference in how those organizations are run. Businesses are for-profit organizations, and when I worked at a bank, they had a really high-pressure sales mentality, and I did not know that going into it. And I was constantly compared to other banks that have high sales, and they were like, why can't you be like that? Why aren't you selling 8 products and loans for every customer that comes in? And it was so high pressure, I couldn't deal with it. And by the way, those other banks have been called out for being completely unethical. Credit unions, on the other hand, are not-for-profit organizations. We do have to make a little money. We have to pay the bills and keep the lights on. But beyond that, we are basically owned by the people who have accounts with us, our members. So that changes everything, right? When everybody that comes in that door is part owner, you have a responsibility to make sure that they are taken care of. And so a lot of credit unions find ways to give back to the community in significant ways, and Twin Star is one organization that does that and kind of lives that purpose, which I completely love. So I am a fan of credit unions. I will never go to work for a bank again. I hate to say never, but I can definitely say I will never go to work for a bank again. Twin Star was started by a math teacher at Olympia High School. And the math teacher was declined for a loan at a bank because at the time, this was in the 1930s, They said teachers were not full-time employees. They were seasonal employees, and they didn't give loans to teachers. So he started the credit union and with a bunch of other teachers, and we've just kind of grown from there. So because they are started by community members that are invested in the community, and then the credit union continually gives back to the community, I think that is kind of a huge reason why at least Twin Star has worked out. But I can tell you there are other credit unions in the area that have similar stories, and people seem to be similarly happy with them as well.
If I can just add too, starting a job, especially when you're first starting out, you're trying to move out, you're trying to build your life. Money is a big motivator. You want the high-paying job. One thing I've learned over the years is it's very important to consider when you are used to the money, when you do make as much as you want, or at times you do, are you still enjoying what you do? Are you still finding meaning in that? Because you will get to that point where you are doing the job you want to do, but now you're not finding any meaning. You're not having any impact. So I came to the industry for the financial side of it, and then I found the meaning, and I realized, gosh, this is really important work that I'm doing. And I have an impact, even to the smallest degree, in every individual that comes across. I've helped individuals with, like I said, with loans. I've helped people, family member passed away. They just had their first baby and they need to meet with a financial advisor. You name it. So, really, the financial aspect of it is important. And nobody, I'm not going to lie to you. You need to make sure you make enough, but always consider. When you get used to that, am I going to still find meaning? Am I still going to enjoy what I do? Because I've had the jobs where you get the financial side of it, but you are just burnt out. You're just emotionally drained. That doesn't last very long.
Think kind of about what do you feel when you go to bed Sunday night? Do you think, oh, I get to go to work tomorrow, I'm looking forward to that? Or, oh, no, I have to go to work tomorrow? Mm-hmm. That's the deciding point for me. Other questions? No, yes.
So for the resume part, do you have to require some money experience if you're trying to apply for, for example, a bank job or something? Does a resume require your experience in order to have a better chance of getting the job and applying and qualifying for that experience?
I can say, because I've worked with our recruiting department a little bit, that if you are wanting to get a job in a branch specifically, and that's usually kind of your step into the finance industry, at least at Twin Star, they are looking for some type of experience in cash handling. So if you don't have that, they're probably going to look at other resumes and look for that. But like I said earlier, you can find that experience in school sometimes, and I would suggest going to your counselor and saying, I'm interested in applying for these jobs, but I don't have any cash handling experience. Is there a way in school that I can get at least a little bit, and that will definitely help you.
Also, I've hired a lot of individuals with very minimal cash handling experience. I'm talking a coffee stand for a few months, a tanning salon, you working just part-time in between school. So any little part-time work you've had that experience, if you know you can count cash, right, then put it on there. But make sure you list it on there, because there is a gatekeeper before it gets to us. That's going to be our HR department. They're going to look for that, and there are minimum qualifications you have to check those boxes in order to keep going forward in the process.
Other questions?
Yes, we have one over here.
Yeah.
Could you share your experience a little bit about managing your finances with the commission-based income?
That's for you.
That would be me. Well, it's hard because, and I don't know how familiar you guys are with all of this, but interest rates a couple years ago during COVID were very low, and we were very, very, very busy. And so the majority of my income was my commissions, and I've had that many years, and you just have to, after doing this for 26 years, there's highs and lows, and you have to learn to navigate that and save for the lows. So, we've seen it, there's a lot of, and especially my position at different institutions where people get out of the business because they can't maintain during the lows. And the lows can be pretty low, let me tell you. But you just have to learn to prioritize and just kind of like for me personally, I just base my expenses and what I do off of like a set amount. That would probably be my minimum. Everything else is kind of fluff and I save. So for example, last year was, and so far this year has been pretty bad. You know, the housing market's horrible, interest rates went up, and people would get out of this job, but if, you know, I love what I do and you have to look what works for you, or if you have another income coming in from, you know, if you are married or you have a significant other or whatever the case is, and just try to live on minimum. You know, we're in a world where we're a lot of extra. You know, I mean, that's just reality, right? We go out to eat, we go buy coffee. I don't do a lot of that because I do other things. But, you know, it's just try to just maintain, and then you have that extra, and then invest it. I put a lot in my 401, I invest a lot. You know, you just have to find what works for you. I don't know if that helped or not, but.
So you're saying budgeting is important?
Super important. And, and then also maybe take a budget, whatever. Just save. I'm telling you, save. That is just gonna pay off in the end, no matter what you're doing. So, all those things are just material things. I know I'm sounding like a mom now, so I'm sorry.
Well, and you know, and we have these conversations all of the time with people across the table from us, right? Applying for a mortgage or for an auto loan. I've seen individuals that made $30,000-$40,000 a month get denied for loans because their debt-to-income ratio is too high. So I'm very passionate about, like, don't live up to your means. Everybody you think has a lot of money are just in a lot of debt, and that is very, very common. So yes, put it as much weight as you can. You know, drive the same vehicle, fix it if it goes wrong, don't buy a new one. But that's just because we have these conversations all the time. But no, that is a humongous part, because you can make as much money as you think you need, and then very quickly not make enough.
Time for one last question. Back.
What are the things that recruiters check in a cover letter?
Could you stand up and repeat that louder, please?
What are the things that recruiters check in a cover letter?
In a cover letter.
Yeah, in a cover letter. Yeah. So what the question is, what do recruiters look for in a cover letter?
You know, the cover letter, it does matter, but you don't want it to be too lengthy. So keep it at one page, break it into 2 or 3 paragraphs, and really just give the reason why you are excited about the role that you're applying for. Don't let it be a kind of a general cover letter. Don't let it be, okay, I'm looking for a place where I can work hard and move up and blah, blah. And make sure it has something to do with the value you're adding, not what you want to get out of it.
I'd second that. So please join me in thanking these people from Twin Star. Appreciate you coming here very much. And as a bonus, Twin Star has provided the lunch